Most people don't fail to save $10,000 because they can't do math. They fail because nobody ever showed them the actual number of months standing between them and it. Here's what that costs you in real terms. $10,000 isn't just a savings milestone. It's the thing that lets you survive a layoff without going into debt, replace a transmission without a payday loan, move out of a bad situation, leave a job that's grinding you down, sleep through the night without doing math in your head at 2 in the morning. The number has a life attached to it, and most people never build it because they can't see the path. I spent 10 years in construction before I ever ran these numbers for myself. I knew I should be saving, I just didn't know what should look like in months on a paycheck like mine. When I finally sat down and did the math, it was the first time saving felt like something I could plan for, instead of just feel guilty about. So that's what we're doing here. Real timelines, real income levels, and the specific things that either stretch that clock or cut it in half. The numbers might surprise you. Some of them are harder than you'd hope, but all of them are workable once you can see them.
Before we get into the full table, I want to show you the single comparison that surprised me most when I first ran this. Someone making $50,000 a year and saving 5% of their take-home takes almost 6 years to reach $10,000. This same person saving 15% gets there in 2. Same income, same job, same paycheck, 4 years difference. That's not a rounding error. That's the difference between building something and watching the finish line never get closer. Now here's the full picture. 3 income levels, $40,000, $50,000, and $60,000 a year. After federal taxes, state taxes, and FICA, your take-home at $40,000 is roughly $2,300 a month. At $50,000, around $2,800. At $60,000, around $3,200. These shift based on your state and filing status, but this is a solid working range. At $40,000 a year, 5% is about $115 a month, 87 months to $10,000, over 7 years. 10% is $230, 43 months, just under 3.5 years. 15% is $345, 29 months, just under 2.5 years. At $50,000, 5% is around $140 a month, 71 months, almost 6 years. 10% is $280, 36 months, 3 years. 15% is $420, 24 months, 2 years exactly. At $60,000, 5% is roughly $160 a month, 62 months, just over 5 years. 10% is $320, 31 months, under 3 years. 15% is $480, 21 months, under 2 years. Find your income, find your savings rate, look at your timeline. That number, in actual months, is more useful than anything vague anyone has ever told you about being disciplined. Drop your timeline in the comments. Are you looking at 24 months? 36? Longer? I want to know where people are actually starting from.
Those timelines assumed consistent contributions every month with no setbacks. In the real world, 3 things reliably stretch them, and all 3 are worth understanding before you start, because you can plan around them. The first is lifestyle creep. When you get a raise, spending usually rises to meet it. You upgrade your apartment, eat out a little more, convince yourself a nicer car is reasonable because you work hard. The savings rate stays flat or drops as a percentage, even though the paycheck went up. This isn't a character flaw. It's just how spending behaves when there's no intentional system intercepting it first. The raise disappears, and 6 months later, you're saving the same dollar amount you were before, sometimes less. The second is false starts. Most people trying to save $10,000 have started 2 or 3 times before. A car repair, a medical bill, a move. The account gets drained and the clock resets. And when you restart, you often restart lower than you think, because some of that savings got quietly absorbed into daily spending before the disruption even happened. This is exactly why the emergency fund sequence from the last video matters. A savings goal without a separate cash buffer is just an account waiting to get raided. The third is irregular income. If you're picking up overtime in some months but not others, doing gig work or working in a seasonal industry, your contributions aren't consistent. You might put away $700 in March and nothing in June. The math we just ran assumes steady monthly deposits. Irregular income stretches every one of those timelines because the real average contribution ends up lower than you think. None of these are dead ends, they're just variables. And variables you understand are variables you can manage. So what actually moves the timeline in the right direction? 3 things. 2 of them don't require earning a single dollar more. Automation is the most effective tool. Not because it's clever, but because it removes the decision entirely. When the transfer happens the same day your paycheck lands, you never see that money in your checking account. You can't spend what isn't there. People who automate savings reach their goals faster than people who manually transfer, not because they're more disciplined, but because discipline isn't required. The system runs whether you're motivated that month or not. A dedicated account matters more than people expect. When your $10,000 goal is sitting in the same account as your grocery money, it feels accessible. You dip into it. A separate savings account, ideally one that takes a couple of days to transfer out of, creates friction. That friction is useful. Out of sight genuinely does mean out of mind when the number isn't staring at you every time you check your balance. Income events are the accelerators most savings plans completely ignore. Tax refunds, overtime, selling something you own. The average federal tax refund runs around $3,000. If you redirect even half of that straight to your goal, you cut months off the timeline without changing your monthly contributions at all. At $50,000 a year, saving 10%, one redirected refund takes your timeline from 36 months to roughly 20. 16 months erased from a single decision, one you make before the money ever hits your account. The people who hit 10,000 fast almost never got there by saving more every single month. They got there because they made one or two lump sum decisions at the right moment, and they made those decisions in advance, before the money was in hand and had somewhere else to be. Now here's where most people actually stand. Federal Reserve data puts the median liquid savings balance for Americans in their late 20s and early 30s well under $10,000. The majority of working adults in the 25 to 35 range have under $1,000 they could access today in an emergency. The goal we're talking about, $10,000, puts you ahead of most people your age in your income range. Not because it's extraordinary, because the baseline is that low, and the system most people are running was never designed to build savings in the first place. It's genuinely difficult. The timelines are longer than anyone tells you up front. The obstacles are real, but the levers are real too, and they're yours to pull.
Here's what you do this week. Not this year, this week. Step 1. Calculate your actual take-home per month. Not your salary, what lands in your account after taxes. Pull up your last 2 pay stubs if you're not sure. Step 2. Pick a savings rate you can sustain without a lifestyle overhaul. If you've never saved consistently before, 10% is probably too aggressive to start. 5% is a real number. Start there. The habit matters more than the amount in month 1. Step 3. Open a separate savings account if you don't have one. Most online banks let you do this in under 10 minutes. Name it something specific, not just savings. Something like 10,000 goal. It sounds minor, it changes how you relate to the account. Step 4. Set up an automatic transfer for the day your paycheck hits. Even $50 is a legitimate starting point. Set it and let it run. Step 5. Look at your calendar and identify any income events in the next 6 months. Tax season, a bonus period, plan side income. Decide now, before that money arrives, what percentage goes directly to the goal. Making that call in advance is what separates a plan from a hope. Here's where it leads long-term. Someone who hits 10,000 by 27 and moves it into the investment framework from the last video, employer match, Roth IRA, index funds, and keeps contributing, is looking at a portfolio in the mid-6 to low 7 figures by standard retirement age. Not because they earned a lot, because they started early and didn't stop. Every year you wait on the saving side delays the compounding on the investment side. The two clocks are connected. The math isn't complicated, the timeline is just longer than people expect, and it gets stretched further by lifestyle creep, false starts, and inconsistency. But it's also shorter than you think once automation and income redirection are doing the heavy lifting. Find your number in the table. That's your timeline. Now you're not guessing. Let me know in the comments which step you're starting with this week. Setting up the transfer, opening the account, or just finally running your number for the first time. The people who comment on these videos are usually the ones who actually follow through. Be one of those people. In the next video, we're going into the debt question, specifically whether to pay off debt first or build the emergency fund first. Most people get that order completely backwards, and it costs them real money. I'll show you the exact point where one becomes smarter than the other.
See you in the next one. Let's build some wealth.